Here to present to you one of the main dishes of the State of the Union package, our proposals on a new Africa-Europe alliance. Without further ado, I will start with the High Representative Vice President.
Thank you. You might remember that when we started our mandate 4 years ago, we said that it was not enough, it was not good anymore to work just for Africa, but that we wanted to shift the paradigm and start working with Africa. In these last 4 years, we've been building step by step a different kind of partnership with Africa, a partnership of equals with the continent that is the closest one to Europe, only 14 kilometers away from our coasts, a continent whose development, security, guarantees also Europe's development and security. So we have turned the page somehow, shifting from a donor-recipient kind of relationship, the traditional one, based on development aid and humanitarian aid, to a partnership based first and foremost on our political partnership. We work with Africa very closely on most of the global issues, starting from the multilateral frameworks in the United Nations. We work with Africa very closely on peace and security, especially in the Sahel, in the Horn of Africa, on all the different many crises that are there. But we've started since a couple of years, together with Vice President KATAINEN and Commissioner MIMICA, to work on the economic partnership between the European Union and Africa. So now we are taking a new step in this direction, launching an Africa-Europe Alliance for Sustainable Investments and Jobs. And this will be a major priority for our work in the year ahead. This is a commitment we have taken and we've discussed with our African partners last year when we had the EU-African Union Summit in Abidjan, where we discussed together with our African partners the fact that we have a joint interest in investing in all the rest. Development aid stays, but all the rest is also important. And so trade, economic relations, investments, including private ones. So over the last years, we have already strengthened our cooperation with Africa enormously. We have, you might remember that, a couple of years ago, launched a European External Investment Plan to bring more private investments in Africa. Now, next step today is to deepen our trade and investment relationship. We are already, and by far, Africa's first partner in trade, investment and development. I can give you a couple of numbers. We are, Africa's trade is for 36% with the European Union. The European investment is also almost 300 billion euros a year. And I hear a lot about China presence in Africa. Let me give you one number. If EU trade with Africa is 36%, China trade with Africa is 16%. If EU foreign direct investment in Africa is 40%, China is 5%. So I think that it would be good for us to realize how strong our partnership already is. And now we are proposing to increase it to a new level. Irki and Neven will share more details about the proposal itself. But I would like to underline one specific point that is particularly close to my heart and also to my work in these years, youth, the investment on the younger generation of the continent. That sometimes is seen as a ticking bomb, while it is actually the greatest opportunity for growth of the continent. Every time we've traveled to Africa, I've done it many times in these last years, we meet young entrepreneurs that are creating, for instance, online services. We meet young women that are starting businesses mixing tradition and innovation and providing services to their communities. And these are only two aspects of the creativity of a young generation in Africa that is ready and willing to work for the economic development of their own continent. So they often lack education and training, and they often lack access to financial opportunities. And this is why we have proposed with this package instruments to support the younger generation of Africa. First of all, we propose to support Africa's own kind of Erasmus scheme with more funding to education that would allow the African youth to invest in their own training and education. We will increase our support for scholarships and exchange programs with a goal of over 100,000 students benefiting from Erasmus Plus in the next 10 years, and with the goal also of giving vocational training to 750,000 young Africans by 2020. There is a huge potential in Africa. I know that we always refer to the continent in relation to either migration or conflicts and crisis. The idea of this package is to focus on the opportunities and on the common interest we have to work together in partnership on economic development. So I will be traveling again to Africa next month, in particular in the Horn of Africa, and also to meet again with our friends in the African Union to follow up on these proposals. And there will be also opportunities for me personally and for others from us to discuss these ideas and these proposals at the next General Assembly in New York in 10 days from now.
Thank you. Now the Vice President on the economic perspective.
Thank you very much. Like Frederick already said, in the beginning of this mandate, we wanted to, is it right to say, to modernize, we cooperate with Africa. And since that, we have wanted to look at various fields of cooperation, including economic cooperation, how to modernize the ways we use existing resources or additional resources more effectively. Investing in these strategic economic sectors in Africa, in skills, improving the business and investment climate, and boosting intra-Africa and EU-Africa trade can deeply contribute to creating growth and jobs and stability in Africa. The EU is determined to play a key role to achieve this in the future. And for that, we want to help boost investment in Africa, drawing the lessons from the successful investment plan for Europe model in the EU. To do so, we can use public money to attract private investment much more efficiently and achieve better result with a strong ownership in our partner countries. So what we are next proposing is based on lessons learned from InvestEU program. So we have successfully, as you know, managed to wake up sleeping private liquidity in the bank accounts and wanted to include this private liquidity to building Europe. So by providing guarantees, we have managed to crowd in private resources for productive investment. We already launched the external investment plan in 2016, which by using the EU budget guarantees of just 4.1 billion euros is expected to generate up to 44 billion euros of investment by 2020. This is on track. In July, we gave the green light to the package of guarantee programs set to trigger around 9 billion euros in investment. Neven can give more information on this issue. Looking to the future, we want to continue using this model for long-term EU budget for 2021-2027 and create an external investment platform that will multiply available funds by bringing together the EU budget and funds from the EIB Group, EU Bank, the EBRD, Member States development banks and private sector. This will allow us to leverage the EU budget so as to invest more in Africa, our neighborhood, and beyond. We indeed believe there is a scope for closer collaboration between these actors to benefit from their respective experience and expertise, while maintaining diversity in the market. This can be done, for example, through regional and thematic specialization of partners or joint initiatives. One successful example of coordination already in place is the Western Balkans investment framework, in which the EIB and the EBRD are joint partners alongside the Commission the Council of Europe Development Bank, and several bilateral donors. This initiative provides financing and technical assistance to strategic investments in energy, environmental, social, transport and digital infrastructure. Such a model could be replicated. The Commission, together with Member States, will retain the political steer on external activities we will finance to ensure consistency with external policy objectives. But let me be very clear. We don't aim and do not have the capacity to become a bank. We will only keep the policy steer and manage the guarantee provided from the EU budget to development partners. So the implementing partners are the ones who do due diligence and do the banking decisions. Our role is to look at that EU taxpayers' money is used for the policy perspective, policy objectives which the Commission together with Member States have decided. Yep.
Commissioner? Yes, thank you. Thank you very much indeed. So let me go into some more details on the new Europe-Africa Alliance for Sustainable Investments and Jobs that President Juncker announced on Wednesday. Africa and the European Union are already close partners with a strong political framework. What is missing, though, is a coherent economic strategy, coherent joint economic strategy. This is precisely the ambition of a new alliance, to develop more the economic angle of the partnership in order to give it a real chance to deliver beyond words. And it is so important for our overall partnership with Africa to strengthen the job investments alliance, because Africa is a giant sleeping at our feet with enormous potential to affect our future, economic, political, social future, positively or negatively. And all the way around is equally valid. So therefore, Africa is our twin continent, and we have to concentrate, I would say, on the four axes of this new economic alliance that we are proposing. So the first axe should be the boosting strategic investments for job creation and strengthen the role of the private sector. It is so important to upgrade, to upscale our grant public money potential that we invest in Africa already. Already now over 23 billion euros of official development assistance, of grants, of public money go from member states and the European Union to Africa every year. But we can do much more out of our grant capacity in order to bring part of it into blending, into guarantee-supported schemes, in order to leverage our overall development impact in Africa, especially investment impact and the growth creation impact to the much, much higher level. So therefore, we shall now continue to develop further the growth and jobs compacts that are currently under discussion with most of our African partners, because we do not want to come to Africa with our investment proposals, investments project. It must be and it will be a joint economic investment exercise that is based on the development priorities of our African partners. So the ownership of this is important to be put together with African partners. On the basis of the already launched and established task forces on several important sectors of future investments, like in agriculture, we did it for digitalization as well. We are now in a process of extending these task forces to bring together African and European public, private, financial operators in other sectors like energy, renewable energy, and transport, for instance. The second point, second line of action is to invest in people, in education, in skills, We will work on addressing the mismatch between skills and jobs by supporting the African Union Skills Initiative, for example. What we want to achieve by such an alliance, by this alliance, is to increase substantially the employment and employability in Africa. This is important part of our second line of action. Thirdly, the business environment and investment climate are to be improved. They have to be improved. And we will work on strengthened dialogue and cooperation with our African partners. Our idea is to step up joint efforts to develop more domestic resource mobilization and to fight illicit financial flows as well, together and primarily with our African partners. And fourth, we have to tap the full potential of economic integration and trade, economic integration in Africa and the trade relations between Africa and the European Union. We will support the negotiations on the implementation of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. We will also support better exploiting our existing regimes to facilitate trade with Europe under existing and the forthcoming economic partnership agreement. There should be also a basis for our next step for our continent-to-continent free trade agreement between the EU and Africa in the longer term as our vision, as our goal. So to deliver these ambitions, important financial resources are already available under current financial framework, but we already proposed for the next MFF increased grant capacity, increased by almost 25%, and increased guarantee schemes that would enable investment and jobs alliance to really to flow. This new alliance is a powerful signal that we should think about Africa in a positive terms. That is very important. The European Union and its member states are already doing a lot in the official development assistance to Africa, but we really have to transform it as much as possible into our overall investment alliance, to add investments to our grant projects. What we, as a commission, as this commission, what we can have as a hard fact is our ongoing external investment plan. We are now, after first tranche of this exercise, where we could almost guarantee that there will be 24 billion of new investments under only in Africa and the neighborhood, only under the half of the guarantee schemes used. We are now on a best way to leverage 44 billion in Africa until 2020 of a new additional investments that would otherwise not happen without our blending and guarantee support. This is an excellent basis if continued, if stepped up within the new MFF period, that we could really think of almost 10 times more investments in job creation investments in Africa until 2027. This is what I assess, not Commission yet, because this Commission can assess and set our targets until 2020. But for the new MFF, based on a good work that we have in investments in Africa right now, we can really substantially increase our strategic investments for job creation and engagement of private sector in Africa. So my last point is that we are often trapped into cliché and negative images of Africa, notably because of the migration issue. Launching an initiative like this one, whose objective is to boost investment, will help overcoming those outdated images and reminding us of the dynamism and of the potential of our African partners. And this is what we would like not only to see, but to contribute to in our future actions. Thank you.
Thank to all three of you. Before we switch to your questions, simply a message for the President that the President will travel to the United Nations General Assembly this year, and of course the Africa package will be very much at the heart of his discussions there with the Secretary General Guterres and the President of the African Union, President Kagame. Let's start with Jurek. Can you please specify from which angle and to whom so that we can... I'll come to you, Olivier. Yeah. We start with Jurek.
Jurek from the newspaper Le Soir. It's, I would say, a general angle, and a question may be addressed to all of you, but more particularly maybe because it's general to High Representative Mogherini. Many things change in the world and changed in the last years, but one thing that does not change is the regularity of the grand announcements of plans on Africa, and what does not change is the discrepancy or the gap between the scale of the ambitions announced and the reality. It's also regularly for 20 years on the agenda and in the statements of the G6 or 7 and 8 and then again 7 and the 20s, and I don't remember how many Gs, where Africa is said being very important, but the result is still the same gap. So what can make us believe? I hear that there is one, at least one, there are more, but one novelty, which is a kind of Juncker plan, let's say, methodology here for Africa, okay, but more globally, you are speaking of a change of paradigm. What makes us believe that there is, or you will work out not only the EU, but the member states, you will make succeed in a change of paradigm, and specifically maybe there are many obstacles in these grand alliances or a planned alliance with Africa. On one side, in Africa, it's the rule of law and corruption, which in turn is often contributes to the feeling of arrogance that they feel from the European side, and also on the EU side, you are talking about trade, but for instance, just as an example, the common agricultural policy is very often considered as not benefiting or even being detrimental to trade with Africa. So considering all that, what can make us believe that this is not one new next grand announcement with the same result? Thank you.
I hope the easy question would be wait and see, but that would be too easy. I would say ask the Africans. Or just look at what our partners in Africa, starting from the President of the African Union Commission, Moussa Faki, stated last time he was here in Brussels, or our friends from the G5 Sahel, last time they were here in June, and they're here regularly. Ask them what has changed in these months, in this couple of years, and what they see is changing in the European Union attitude compared to a few years ago. And they replied already in this last couple of months, and they will reply again, I believe, that what has changed is that the approach now is based on partnership. I mentioned the fact that this plan, this package, is based on discussions we had at the last summit in Abidjan between the African Union and the European Union, and the turning point has been that. There, we discussed together with the African Union and the member states of the African Union their priorities and see where their priorities matched our priorities. And we found out that economic investments, jobs creation, trade was a common priority for both of us for different reasons. But ask our business community in Europe, across the continent, if they don't know already that Africa is a big market and has a lot of potential for investments, for infrastructures, for energy, for digital, and you name it. So there is here not only a new narrative, which is also important, but there is a new approach that we discuss priorities together and we put forward proposals that respond not only to our interest, but also to their interest. And there's also the money. There is a different approach that is based on the experience of the Juncker plan. There is an approach that mixes our budget that is already enormous for Africa. I asked to get an approximate figure of how much money the European Union puts on Africa on the different sectors every year, and it's more or less 20 billion euros a year. So our money in Africa is a lot. Now the effort is to bring also the private investments in Africa with an eye to the environment they're going to invest into. You mentioned that. This is very important. Anti-corruption, rule of law, human rights, not afraid of saying that, on the contrary, quite outspoken on that. The role of youth and women in their societies, transparency, participation, and the list could continue. This is also part of an investment in an environment that would attract investments and trade, and that would make the economic development of Africa much more sustainable and effective. So there is a lot that has changed. Obviously, this effort will need to be sustained by our member states as well. And here I make an appeal to our member states to be coherent, because when they say that Africa is a priority and must be the priority, and they ask for the Commission to put EU budget into that kind of relationship, then they have to match it with national budget. And this is, let's say, still to be properly done, at least by many. And we are discussing now with the development ministers on the other side of the square exactly the priority of our relationship with Africa. I think that the real change would be when Irki will discuss with the ministers that work with him investments in Africa, and not only the development ministers or the foreign ministers. But we'll get there, I'm sure, because this is exactly the kind of approach we are proposing, and I think there is an understanding on the fact that we have to move forward with a much broader and consistent view.
May I just add very shortly on what Federica said? One of the novelties in our policies is that the focus is much more now in private investment in Africa. And also linked to this, we are ready to provide significant amount of guarantees together with grants. But the amount of guarantees are increasing significantly, because this is the way we can leverage our resources, and this is also suitable for private investment. Like Federica said before, some 40% of foreign direct investments in Africa comes from Europe. So there are already lots of companies involved in various businesses in Africa, but we want to increase this significantly. I think everybody here agrees that African countries are full of potential, which is untapped. So we want to modernize the way we finance projects, and that's why guarantees plays a role. I just try to simplify. If there is one of our priorities is to improve environmentally friendly, sustainable energy production in various African countries. If there's a Belgian company who is interested in investing to one of those countries for renewable energy, but they cannot get financing because it's seen too risky, they can contact directly Belgian Development Bank or EIB or EBRD and ask if they could negotiate a financial package. And we are helping those intermediaries by guaranteeing their operation. So this is the way we are working.
Okay, then I had Olivier.
Merci. Une question en allemand à l'autre représentante, si vous permettez, vu qu'il y a la traduction ici maintenant.
Oui, on a toutes les langues.
Sehr geehrte Frau Mogherini, Sie haben gesagt, die Jugend Afrikas wird manchmal als Zeitbombe angesehen, aber in Wirklichkeit ist es eine der größten Gelegenheiten für Afrika. Wenn man aber die Arbeiten von vielen Demografen, zum Beispiel von Stephen Smith, sich vor Augen führt, und den kennen Sie sicher, denn Emmanuel Macron hat sein aktuelles Buch ständig bei sich und zitiert das ständig, wenn er über Afrika spricht, dann sagt er, die Demografie ist das Riesenproblem für Afrika und die meisten afrikanischen Staaten tun nicht genug, um die Bevölkerungsexplosion in den Griff zu bekommen. Und wenn man das nicht in den Griff bekommt, dann sind alle Pläne für eine Finanzmechanik, für bessere Entwicklungshilfe oder so, wie Sie sie hier präsentieren, völlig wirkungslos, weil die afrikanischen Ökonomien einfach nicht genügend Jobs schaffen können für die jungen Menschen dort. Glauben Sie wirklich, dass das demografische Problem Afrikas, das viel zu starke Wachstum der Bevölkerung ernsthaft dort in den Griff genommen wird? Und können Sie aktuell sagen, was Sie davon halten, wenn der Präsident Tansanias, das ist der Herr John Magufuli, dieser Tage sagt, das ist völlig egal, vermehrt euch ruhig weiter, Tansania ist reich genug, um noch mehr Menschen zu ernähren. Das hat er bei einem Treffen mit der UNO-Sondergesandten für demografische Fragen gesagt. Danke.
Let me say, as a woman, before then as a high representative, that sure, having 5, 7, 9, 12 children for a woman in her lifetime is definitely not something that I would wish my friends or my colleagues or my... It's beautiful to have children, most beautiful thing in life. But obviously, there is a problem. There is a demographic problem in Africa. And let me say, it's first and foremost a demographic problem for the women of Africa. And sometimes this perspective is missing. We only see the problem of the population growing. We don't see this from the perspective of those that are giving birth. And maybe we should introduce a human element in this. Having said that, so yes, there is a challenge there that needs to be tackled. I know that many African leaders, including many women that are African leaders, are trying to address this in a context that has a culture and a tradition that is not used to manage with this. Having said that, I would always refuse to consider the young generation of Africa a problem in itself, because I've met them, I know them, we have been working with them across the continent over these last 4 years, and I can tell you, when you point out at the lack of transparency, you point out at the corruption, where you point out at the problem of rule of law, of democracy, of participation, the answer is in the younger generation of Africa. So no, the youth of Africa is not a problem. The youth of Africa is the biggest resource Africa has, I guess, and I know, together with the women of Africa, and especially the young women of Africa, because then we always separate the two categories, forgetting that there are also young women that are taking a growing space in societies there, and this is something we are supporting. Doesn't mean that we deny that there is a demographic challenge in the continent, but we cannot imagine that a generation or a couple of generations for the continent are a burden. No, they are the best energy of the continent. They are incredibly willing to invest in their own continent, in their own way, but they're lacking the means for doing that. And this is why I focused in my introduction especially on our investment on education for the African youth and on the support that we're trying to give in particular to youth across all the different sectors of support and investment in this package.
Okay, then I had you on the left.
Philip Saure, EPD. My question is to Vice President Katainen. You launched the external investment plan already some time ago, and its component, the Sustainable Development Fund, I think it's called. How big is the interest to date? How many companies from Europe want to use its financial instruments and invest in Africa? And secondly, do you foresee a change in agricultural policy in the European Union, in particular subsidies? So to make it better cope with the situation in Africa, where it is said too often to produce a too big market power of Europe?
So I guess Neven knows actually in detail how much the investment plan, external investment plan, has already been used. But what I said, and Neven also mentioned in our introductory remark, we launched in July. We released a few sets of guarantees for new investments, which will trigger some 9 billion of investments in our under our investment program. But more generally speaking, if listening what private sector is saying, is that there are countries or regions in Africa where the growth prospects are very fascinating, but still, due to the fragile situation or the market situation, the risks are high, and that's why the cost of financing is also high. So it's not only Chinese companies, but also the European companies which are looking more to African opportunities than they did some while ago, and that has encouraged us to look at the external investment plan from private investors' perspective. We hear the similar news from the member states, so that they want to help their companies to invest in Africa if there's a demand. So using EU guarantees, or how much EU guarantees are used, is based on demand. So this is different than traditional, still valid and important development aid, which is in the form of grants. So guarantees are purely demand-driven. They are not used if nobody wants to use them, but they are used if there is a demand for this. And our understanding is that there is a demand, and it's very positive that the grants plays a crucial role, because all the investments are not economically viable, but they are still important. But at the same time, we have to release another part of the economy, which is private economy, to do their job like they do it elsewhere. But Neven, if you could say.
Yes, the level of investment interest of European companies in Africa is encouraging. I can say that on the basis of our first part of engaging the guarantee schemes and the blending facilities under the already launched external investment plan, when it comes to guarantees that should cover the investment in a riskier environment like in Africa, the level of the proposed investments seeking for the guarantee was almost double than the overall guarantee scheme we had, 1.6 billion euros. This is the guarantee level that we have under the external investment plan until 2020. And the requests coming, or proposals for investments, were asking for over 3 billion euros of guarantees. So we had, I would say, a pleasant, maybe not easy, but at least encouraging work to look and to select the real investment projects with the most of the additional development impact in Africa. Some of these project requests were not able were not good enough to cope with the risk assessment part of our selection process, but the other were almost equally valid for increasing the impact of our investment in Africa. So therefore, based on this experience that already leveraged, or we leveraged up to 9 billion euros by using half 800 million of guarantee schemes, and adding the blending capacity that makes the investment financing, investment loans down to the most concessional level that goes almost right now to over 15 billion of euros of investment. So altogether 24 billion euros of investments. This gives us really confidence in the assessment that by 2020, 44 billion euros of new investments in Africa will be possible to reach, having in mind the level of already existing investment interest.
Okay, I have Carreta and Agustin, and then we switch, and you, and then we switch to midday. Please, let's try to cover new angles. Yes.
David Carretta, Radio Radicale in Italian, if I may, per la vicepresidente Mogherini. Nei documenti c'è scritto che l'obiettivo di lungo periodo di questa alleanza, uno degli obiettivi è quello di arrivare a un'area di libero scambio tra Unione Europea e Africa. Volevo chiederle se è realistico dal punto di vista politico avere questo obiettivo nel momento in cui in Europa, penso al paese che entrambi conosciamo meglio, ci sono forze al governo che dicono no, per esempio, alle quote liberi da dazi dell'olio tunisino che erano state introdotte per aiutare l'economia tunisina nel momento del tentativo di rafforzare la democrazia della Tunisia. And I would have a second question to Vice President Katainen, if I may, on another topic. Yesterday, the president of the Stock Exchange Authority in Italy has stepped down following huge political pressure.
David, if you don't mind, we can take this in midday so that we do Africa now.
In italiano.
In italiano.
Sì, credo che sia realistico politicamente ed anche da un punto di vista economico. Nel lungo periodo la creazione di un'area di libero scambio tra Africa e Unione Europea. Innanzitutto perché l'Africa sta già lavorando alla creazione di una sua area di libero scambio e noi la stiamo sostenendo. Abbiamo deciso di sostenere questo lavoro dell'Unione Africana per la creazione di un'area di libero scambio africana con 50 milioni di euro iniziali per questi 2 anni, 2018-2020. Prima di tutto perché sostenere l'economia interafricana, gli scambi commerciali tra africani è un modo fondamentale per incoraggiare e per sostenere il loro sviluppo economico. E poi perché la prossimità geografica, la prossimità culturale anche, storica, che l'Europa ha con l'Africa può consentirci in prospettiva, chiaramente, di avere questo scenario. Non soltanto la vicinanza geografica e culturale, ma i numeri che ho citato prima. Già adesso i beni commerciati in Africa, con l'Africa, sono il 36% provenienti dall'Unione Europea. Siamo i primi partner commerciali dell'Africa, siamo i primi investitori in Africa con il 40% degli investimenti stranieri che vengono dall'Unione Europea. E, appunto, ripeto in italiano perché credo che valga la pena farlo. Spesso pensiamo che sia la Cina la presenza economica più forte in Africa. La Cina investe in Africa il 5%, l'Unione Europea il 40% degli investimenti che sono presenti in Africa. Quindi questa base di relazione economica forte, fortissima, che i nostri imprenditori europei conoscono molto bene, può essere la base realistica per lavorare in prospettiva verso una zona di libero scambio tra Unione Europea e Africa. Certamente questo richiederebbe una politica coerente, non soltanto da parte delle istituzioni europee, ma anche da parte degli Stati membri. Faccio un esempio: noi abbiamo proposto di aumentare del 30% il bilancio dell'Unione Europea per il prossimo periodo finanziario dedicato all'azione esterna dell'Unione. Abbiamo proposto di prevedere per il prossimo bilancio europeo 40 miliardi di euro da dedicare al nostro lavoro con l'Africa. Mi aspetto che gli Stati membri che dicono che il lavoro con l'Africa è prioritario sostengano questa proposta.
Agustin, Africa or something else?
Union, President Juncker, he spoke a lot about Africa, but he also mentioned the need that the EU speaks with one voice once and for all, also on Western Balkans. So I would ask Madame Mogherini, because she experienced this lack of unity of EU when it comes to the Western Balkans, be it for the future enlargement or Kosovo status, whatever.
Okay, you get the prize for the most Africa-related question.
Yeah, it's a neighborhood, and it might turn out to be as troubled region as Africa if something is not done soon. Do you still believe that the European Union will support a solution in relations between Kosovo and Serbia if the solution is exchange of territory, which means changing of borders of existing countries, most of whom are also candidate countries and potential candidates for EU? Thank you.
I think we stick to Africa here, but I have answered your question many times in the last 10 days, so you can go and check my statements. But yes, I still believe that solution is possible.
Okay, I think we can leave it there. This concludes our press conference. Thanks to all three of you. We switch to midday in a few minutes. Thank you.